So this is going to be considered C21. And this is Tibialis posterior, Flexor hallucis longus, and Flexor digitorum longus. So we're going to use the color green to identify the origin of the tibialis posterior, which is going to be this area here. So this is considered the borders of the tibialis posterior. So we find tibialis posterior muscle here. The lines are indicating where the origin is, and you can also outline the border as we did on C19 and C20 before you highlight or after you highlight. And then this muscle has an insertion of 9 tendon slips, if we remember. The origin is the tibia, fibula, upper 2/3 of the fibula interosseous membrane, and it splits into 9 tendon slips. So what we're going to do is we're going to track the insertion points here with the lines that are indicated on the sheet. Okay, and then we're going to try to do the best we can to identify the ends of where those lines are and just place a circle on the end of the lines. And the lines don't indicate all 9. It might, but it's hard to see. So we're just going to do the 7. Okay, so that's where the tibialis posterior inserts. And then we're going to draw the muscle. So we're going to draw it. It's going to track, remember, posterior to the medial malleolus, which is here, and inferior to the medial malleolus. And then it's going to insert onto these insertion points. Okay, now we're going to do the Flexor digitorum longus, and we know it's from our sheet here. Middle half of the posterior surface of the tibia and interosseous membrane. So we're going to find it on here, which Flexor digitorum longus, again, is the middle half of the posterior surface of the tibia. And on this particular drawing, it doesn't necessarily have an origin highlighted on the interosseous membrane, so we're just going to use the tibia as our origin here. And we're going to use blue for this muscle. And we'll shade it in. And then we'll find the insertion point, which is the via long pulley tendon, passes posterior inferior to the medial malleolus, talus, and deep to the plantar surface foot muscles, and splits into 4 tendons that extend to the distal phalanx of digits 2, 3, 4, 5. So we know that this muscle attaches to the distal phalanges of 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're going to find it on here, which is their Flexor digitorum longus muscle, and we're going to circle, we'll draw the lines, and then we'll circle the insertion points at the end of the lines. And then we'll highlight the insertion points, and then we'll draw the muscle. And so we know that it's via long pulley tendon that passes posterior and inferior to the medial malleolus. So we'll draw this muscle again as it passes posterior and inferior to the medial malleolus. And then it transitions into 4 tendons. There's a tendon, there's a tendon, there's a tendon, and there's a tendon. And that gives us the flexor digitorum longus muscle. The last muscle we're going to identify is the flexor hallucis longus. And from our sheet here, we know that the origin is the distal 2/3 of the posterior surface of the fibula. So we'll use our pen, we'll find the flexor hallucis longus muscle origin, which is identified here. And then we'll border the muscle with our pen. And then we'll use orange for this muscle to identify. And we'll highlight it. Now we look at the insertion point. Now the insertion point is via long pulley tendon that passes posterior on the calcaneus to the plantar surface of the base of the distal phalanx of digit number 1. So we'll find the insertion point here where it says flexor hallucis longus muscle. We'll highlight it. We'll use orange for its insertion point. And we know from our worksheet that it is via long pulley tendon that passes posterior on the calcaneus to the plantar surface of the base of the distal phalanx of digit number 1. So we'll track this muscle in orange. And we know that this is a calcaneus here. And it says it travels posterior on the calcaneus to the plantar surface of the base of the distal phalanx of digit number 1. So we know this muscle is now going to go posterior to the base of the calcaneus, under the plantar surface foot muscle, which is the bottom of the foot, and it attaches to the distal phalange of digit number 1. Then what we'll do is we will take the tibialis posterior and we'll write the origin and the insertion and the action. We'll take the flexor digitorum longus, we'll write the origin, the insertion, and the action, and we'll do the flexor hallucis longus and write the origin, insertion, and the action next to those particular muscles. And we'll use our notes to identify what the origin, insertion, and actions are in order to write them down on the sheet. And that completes my demonstration for C21.